ready to go home?
Shawn has died twice and been brought back to life. It's heartbreaking, but I know he's not going to stay in that bed. I know the Lord has brought him this far, and I know what the doctor's prognoses were, and I know that by their standards and their measure, he shouldn't have been able to live this long. But I also know that the power of prayer is answered. And I also know that miracles still happen today. And I also know that my son is a walking testimony to that. And I know that he feels that if anything that has happened to him and the condition and some of the things that he's had to go through and put his family through and his loved ones through gets to any of the kids out there and keeps just one of them from making the same mistakes he's made, it'll be all worth it.
I can't imagine what it would be like to know that I was at the end of my life. I can't imagine having to look back on everything I've done, every decision I've made, and have to analyze everything, wondering where I went wrong. Having nothing but time, but knowing that there's not much time left. Right now, I don't have to do these things, but for Shawn Bridges, well, that's exactly the point that he's at. See, Shawn's in a hospital bed in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. He's dying. He's dying because of the decisions that he's made. Long ago, he chose to give in to temptation. Long ago, he chose a life of drugs. But he wasn't always that way.
He was my firstborn son, and I know that I love him very much, and I know that he's been through some things that I hate to see anybody go through, and he was all kid when he was growing up.
Just like any other kid, Shawn was full of energy, full of life, with everything laid out in front of him. Things began to turn for the worse for Shawn and for his family when his younger brother passed away in a car accident.
His baby brother was killed when he was very young, and his brother was a year and 11 days old, and for a long time he blamed himself for that. I was in construction here in Cape, and we got rained out one day, so babysitter was getting ready to start college, and I let all the guys off that day, and I went by and picked him up. We went and got some material to deliver to Illinois for a job we was going to be starting the next week. And when I got back, they told me to get to the hospital, and there had been an accident. And we got to the hospital, and his little brother had been killed. And we didn't know it for a long time, but looking back on it, through our grief and everything, we had more or less neglected to see that he was blaming himself, and he evidently done that for quite a while. And so me and his mother kind of just let him go, wouldn't let anybody else discipline him, and we let him do pretty much what he wanted to do.
I think a lot of it had to do with our brother being killed. Shawn remembered it. I wasn't born yet, but Shawn knew about it. He remembered our brother, and I think that had a lot to do with why he took the drugs and partied like he did.
I ended up starting to drive a truck and ended up out on the road quite a bit, and his mother there raising him, and And I finally come in off the road one day and realized we created a monster.
He was like, always, he was wild. He really was. Shawn liked partying. He always liked misbehaving, not obeying mom and dad. Normal teenage stuff.
What wasn't normal was that Shawn was beginning to show signs of aggression. Easily angered, easily frustrated, all of which could be attributed to his drug use.
I knew a lot of the things that he did do, and I seen how it did his life, and I didn't want parts of, like, I didn't want my life to reflect on his. I kind of got a bad name because of him, because of stuff that he done, you know. But and I still, people still thinks, oh, you're Shawn's brother, so you gotta be like him. But
he had some problems growing up, and Shawn was always he was always the kid that when he got hit, he would say ouch, and by the time the teacher or whoever who turned around to look, he was getting back at the whoever who hit him in the first place, you know. He's always the one that got caught. Didn't start it, but he was always the one that got caught. And but anyway, he dropped out of school as soon as he turned 16, and I'd been taking him on the truck with me, and every chance I got, and when he wasn't in school, and then I decided that he had dropped out of school, possibly for the main reason of going out on the truck.
You used to drive trucks? Just drive big trucks?
If you can't answer, son, just nod your head
yes or no. You just tell me yes or no.
Don't worry about it. It's not a big thing. Just yes or no.
Right now, in the condition that Shawn's in, it's hard for him to even be able to understand the questions that I was asking him. In his mind, he was answering me, but he was unable to get his body to do the same.
there was also times whenever I knew that he was on it because of the actions that he did. He tried to kill himself a couple different times, and I kept him from killing himself. He tried to hang himself out of a tree in our front yard, and I grabbed him and I pulled his legs, pushed his legs up so he wouldn't choke to death, and finally the rope actually broke. A lot of things was going on in his life at the end, right in there. At that point, I know he was doing a lot of coke, and I think life was just getting to him. And I told him that I loved him and that I didn't want him doing it anymore, and he told me that he wouldn't.
But Shawn's life-threatening actions sometimes affected more than just him.
There was one time that he got real wasted at a party that he took me to, and he was driving home, and a girl broke up with him the same night, and he's like, oh, I got a lot of coke in my system, I'm feeling real good and all this and that. And he decided that he was just gonna hit somebody head on to hurt whoever he could. And he actually went over in a lane, and I jerked the wheel back, and we ran off the road.
And me and his mother had problems, got divorced. That was really hard on him. And he took that very hard, and evidently he started using methamphetamines and different things that he shouldn't have been using. Whenever
Mom and Dad got a divorce, me and Shawn, we had talked about it, and we basically told each other that me and him's the only family that we got left. Was the only family for each of us anymore. So,
after finding out about his parents' divorce, things continued to get worse for Shawn, and his drug use became more evident.
With Shawn, I witnessed him be on a real good day, you know, and I witnessed him just go down to the depths, and then he'd just go right back up, and I already knew that he had already shot up or snorted a line or whatever, you know.
It seemed like a lot of the things the kids were doing would reach out and grab them. I mean, they'd experiment with things once or twice and they were hooked. And that's the way I found out later, that's the way methamphetamines worked. After you started using them, you got psychologically and physically addictive. It was hard physically to give it up, and mentally you didn't want to. It's a bad drug that has been used and misused and changed and altered through years and years and years to what it is today. And like I said, from what I would be told, there's hundreds of different recipes, and all of them contain poisons. And that's exactly what they do, poison the minds, bodies, and souls of young people. And that's what it was doing to my son.
I seen a lot of that when Mom and Dad didn't. I think Mom and Dad was in more of a denial that no, he wasn't doing drugs. And I mean, all parents is like that. But I mean, I was with Shawn a lot. Me and Shawn used to come over to Kate. I'd see him partying and stuff. And I mean, I was 12, 13, 14 years old, and I wouldn't do stuff that he done. Even though he tried to get me to, and I'm like, no. He's like, well, that's cool. He's like, that's okay. You know, you don't need to do it anyways. You don't need to do what I'm doing.
After he had his first heart attack and found out what he was doing and everything, talked to him, and I believed wholeheartedly, like anybody that loves their kids, believed that he was telling me the truth. And sometimes he was, and sometimes he wasn't.
Shawn had his first heart attack when he was just 26 years old.
The emergency room doctor called heart doctor and said, I've got a problem. Got a boy down here, 26 years old, that's already had a heart attack and getting ready to have another one. So they started telling him what to do and get the cath people there and this, that, and the other. And I'm standing there in the emergency room, and everybody's going every which way, and they're getting the cath team there and getting him upstairs and prepping him, getting ready to do emergency surgery. And they had to, by the time they got in, they had to unclog one of his arteries, which was almost completely clogged. Finally, a nurse said that, called and said that they'd run into a little problem, and it would take a little bit longer than they had said, but they'd let us know as soon as he got into recovery room. And so it was another 45 minutes or so, and they finally called and said he's came through the surgery well. He's in recovery room. We'll let you know when you can see him, and doctor will be out to talk to you. So that's when he was 26 years old.
Shawn never really talked to me about a lot of that. I know after everything was said and done, and he found out that the drugs ruined his life, messed up his body, and put him where he's at now, he had told me that he was glad that I never did it.
Though it should have been a wake-up call for him, he continued with his drug use as his body continued to deteriorate.
He done well until approximately 4.5, 5 years ago. And it was basically the same scenario. He'd been sick and kept getting sick, sounded like he had pneumonia, getting pneumonia. Kept telling him, son, you got to get to the doctor, you got to get to the doctor. He said, yeah, Dad, soon as I can. It ended up, it was congestive heart failure. They were misdiagnosing it because of his age. He was so young. They had no idea that his heart would be in that bad a shape for a young man. Well, the next day he collapsed, and we took him up to a different hospital, and they recognized what was going on there and diagnosed it correctly as congestive heart failure. They gave him, at that time, They gave him 6 months to a year to live. He was 29 to 30 years old.
And then, so we went on with that, and then it just seemed to, every year, it seemed to keep getting worse and worse, and he just couldn't seem to breathe. His breathing got really bad. And then they finally put him in and told him that he had pneumonia, and then turned around and said they had congestive heart failure, that his body was like a 90-year-old man on the inside. And I guess that was due to, they told him that it was due to the drugs that he was doing back then in his younger years. I don't really know a whole lot about what that was all about.
I knew Shawn did a lot of the drugs and drinking and stuff, and with Shawn, I could see how they affected his life, and that scared me. And I think that's why I never did any drugs and never really partied and stuff like that.
But Shawn's partying and drug use did eventually catch up to him, literally costing him his life.
The first time was approximately a year ago. He was checked into the hospital. They realized that, we got to get him into a room and start dealing with this. Well, he started spitting up some blood, and they took a scope down into his lungs to try to find out where the bleeding was coming from and how severe it was and what they needed to do to stop it. They took the tube out, sent him back to his room. I was home for that operation, and I had left to take care of some business and do some things. And we came back, seen him that evening, and went home and went to bed. And wee hours in the morning, they called and said he had been coated. And I rushed to the hospital, and we stood by kind of helplessly as probably 12 to 14 doctors and nurses worked on Shawn, and subsequently got him shot back to life.
I guess it's just been a year ago. Shawn had actually died. They brought him back, and I was talking to him, and he's like, I seen our brother. He said, I seen our brother, I seen God. And he told me, he says, God told me that he's not ready for me, that he had something that I had to do.
Shawn showed up at church one day as a visitor and said he wanted to simply turn his life around. He was sorry for some of the things that he'd done in his life, and he really felt like he wanted to get his life straightened out. And in fact, the other day we were talking here in the hospital, and he'd mentioned the fact that he only had about 10% of his heart. And he said, but I'm not worried about it. I've already gotten a new heart, and that's through accepting the Lord Jesus Christ.
Whenever he died, he really didn't want to come back, but he was told that he had to come back and that he had to straighten up. And he told me that God told him that if he didn't straighten up, that this was just a taste of what it would be like if he did straighten up. But if he didn't straighten up, that he would never be able to go to where he was then. And which Shawn just basically said that if he didn't straighten up and didn't do right, that he'd be burning in hell for the rest of his life. It just really hurts to see him the way he is. I used to be the one that was always in the hospitals and stuff, and he never was. And now it's reversed. It's like he's never home. He's always in the hospital. And first time I broke down. It just hurts seeing him like this and knowing that he put himself there. I mean, he's done a lot of bad things to me and got me into a lot of different situations that I would have never thought a brother would put a brother through. But I realize that it's not really him, you know. I mean, he's done it so long that I think everybody thinks that's the way he is. You know what I mean?
Shawn knows, short of a miracle from the good Lord, and we all know miracles happen every day, Shawn knows that he's got a death sentence. And he knows inevitably it's going to happen.
This last time he was in the hospital has been between 7 and 8 weeks. He was in for a while, out for 2 days, back in, out for almost 4 days, back in, out for a day and a half, back in, and then we thought he was going to get out, and this last episode happened where his heart just, for some reason, just bottomed out, and he had to be brought back to life again, and then his heart had to be, what was left of his heart had to be shot back into time, and he spent the next 2 weeks in SICU.
After 2 heart attacks and 2 brushes with death, Shawn finally did get his wake-up call. Some say that it was too late, but Shawn said otherwise. He knew that there was something that he had to do before his time was over.
And he told me, he's like, I gotta tell kids about what drugs did to my life and how they've messed me up so bad that I don't have a heart anymore. My lungs deteriorating, and all the different stuff that the doctors told him. He just told me.
Even though he may be getting weaker physically, spiritually, he's growing every day. And it's the spirit within him that is really giving him the strength right now to fight and want to stay here as long as he can. He thinks the good Lord's got a purpose for him here. And you know, I pray that the good Lord truly heal him and let him be able to have the opportunity to go around and physically talk to a lot of the children in a lot of different areas.
There was one time he went to the church and talked to the kids about the experiences he had with drugs and how easy it was to get hooked on them. And I think, and then after that, he talked to Buddy about wanting to get together with him to go around and talk to the kids about the drugs so that they can see what kind of experience he did with it. He wanted to do that to help save other kids, to keep them from doing the drugs that he did. He just wanted to show them what drugs can actually do to them.
And he's very motivated to get the message out to the children and letting some of the children know and leaving something behind that maybe if just one child would not get caught up with the drug scene and the meth and the things that motivate and drive you to do those things, if it would just help one child, that's his real motivation right now.
As far as this video, is something that he wanted to do to help redeem some of the wrongs and the mistakes that he's made. And I know that he feels that if anything that has happened to him and the condition and some of the things that he's had to go through and put his family through and his loved ones through gets to any of the kids out there and keeps just one of them from making the same mistakes he's made, it'll be all worth it. And Shawn wanted to do this video for that purpose, and he indicated that to us. And he had high plans of doing this before his last episode, and before he more or less died in the hospital and was brought back to life again.
He also wanted to take the opportunity while he's still on this earth to basically tell the story, and so it could be shown in future generations, future years, on possibly allowing some child to hear it and avoid what he's going through right now. And I think Shawn can be a light for them.
And I also know that as we speak, another miracle is in the process. And my sons are going to walk out of that hospital and come back home to us. I don't know for how long, but the doctors aren't going to make that choice. I'm not going to make that choice. You're not going to make that choice. The Lord is. And I don't think the Lord has brought him this far to leave him sitting in that bed.
The most thing that I miss about Shawn is the few times that he's actually showed that he cared about me. Whenever I had problems, I knew I could go to Shawn and talk to him about some of them. Some of them I couldn't, because he'd be like, oh, just go for it and see what happens, you know. But some of the problems, I mean, me and him, we actually had, we're brothers. I mean, he wants all the kids to know what it does to your body. And I personally want kids to know that it's not only affecting you, it's affecting everybody around you. I mean, there's so much stuff that I won't even tell you about that happened between me and him. But it was due to drugs. I know that. Didn't know it then. Kind of had a hunch, but I know it now. I think he feels that if he could save at least one person from doing the drugs and giving the heartaches and stuff that he had done, maybe that'd make all of his stuff better, you know. I think it's something that he thinks that he has to do. And I think that as soon as he knows that he's done good, that he'll be able to go on home, you know.
Shawn may leave the hospital, but he may not. His condition is too unstable to know for sure, because he is dying, and he is dying because of the decisions that he's made. And even though he may soon be gone, he will never be forgotten. He's going to leave behind a legacy. He knows that he's going to pay the supreme price for his mistakes, but he'll soon be able to leave knowing that he may also have made a difference in someone else's life. For Shawn, there will be no more sunsets, no more time to really see and appreciate the beauty of the world. But if he can die knowing that his story will live on, well, then he can die in peace.